This is my adolescent development autobiography. Now I'm going to give a short background. My adolescent years were a roller coaster of emotions. I'm a Caucasian female from the rural town of Brownsville, Tennessee. At age 8, I lived outside of city limits in a middle-class house. I lived with my mother, father, and older brother, and it was a great place to grow up. I've gone to the same Methodist church my whole life. My parents divorced around age 9 due to my father's multiple affairs. My mother, brother, and I moved to town in a small condominium, and my dad moved to Memphis. I saw my father every other weekend and every other Thursday. My parents always harped on education and trying your best. I attended a predominantly African American public school from pre-K to sophomore year. My friend group was diverse and I got along with everyone. Sophomore year of high school, I got the opportunity to attend USJ, a private school which is predominantly white and students from high-class families, so it was hard to adjust to the new environment. Going to both schools helped me socially because I met such a diverse group of people and I got to see both sides of the educational system. My world was shattered in 2010 when my father passed away in a tragic car accident, so my mom has raised my brother and I on her own for 7 years. I had to grow up quickly, and I realize now some of my actions and behaviors were impacted because of his absence. I now find it very difficult to trust people because the person I looked up to the most lied to my face regularly. I have been inspired by my mother's independence and strength through these challenges. She always puts my brother and I first and teaches us to never lose faith. Overall, these challenges have shaped me into the woman I am today. Now let's discuss Piaget's cognitive development. In adolescence, changes are introduced to cognition. Thoughts become more abstract and complex. Adolescents have an increase in risky behavior because they seek sensations and rewards, which precedes cognitive control. In Piaget's theory, development is like a staircase, and as you reach adolescence, you begin to think about abstract objects and events. There is one stage that fits in the timeline of adolescence, and this stage is the formal operational stage. And it begins at age 11 and goes beyond. The adolescent starts to think hypothetically and questions their thought process. The adolescent's thoughts are also more abstract and complex. I find this to be accurate in the college setting, especially in my psychology classes. Being a psychology major, professors will often question something on the spot. They may ask for an elaboration or make a new argument to question your thinking. So you then have to mentally come up with a new solution and manipulate each factor separately, while also determining which factors can remain constant. This is an example of formal operational thinking. Now it's time to explain Kohlberg's moral development theory. As an adolescent becomes able to think abstractly, they also develop a sense of what is morally good or wrong. This is called the ethics of social contract. This develops when an adolescent believes something is morally good only when it was created through fair processes. As an adolescent's community grows, they become more concerned with the processes in which the community's beliefs were created. They want to hear from everyone's opinion on a subject, so an action, belief, or practice is just. I'm in the Greek community here on campus, and I consider my sorority a community. We vote on whom to put on our executive council and bylaws every year. Although we may disagree, it is a democracy. If one person chose who was going to lead our chapter the next year, our sorority would be in an uproar and think it was unfair. If I never got to state my opinion on an issue in the sorority, I would think it was unfair until the issue was resolved. Now it's time to discuss Erikson's psychosocial crisis. The first crisis in adolescence is identity and role confusion, which is ages 12 through 19. During this time, an adolescent is figuring out who they are through their attitudes and qualities. Sometimes an individual wants to be a certain person or thinks of himself or herself in a certain way, but portrays themselves differently to society, which results in role confusion. When I was in middle school, I had to decide who I wanted to be and what crowd I wanted to run with. As my crowd grew, I determined my goals, morals, and characteristics and chose who to hang out with depending on if they valued the same things. Although this did not happen overnight, it took a long time to determine who I wanted to be and who to cut ties with based on this decision. I definitely experienced role confusion in middle school when my crowd wanted to make poor decisions, and that's not who my character was. The second crisis is intimacy and isolation, which is from ages 19 to 25 and older. Forming relationships can be quite difficult in adolescence, especially if you have trust issues and opening up to people is rare. Once I do open up to people I'm in a relationship with, I tend to have a long-lasting relationship to avoid the risk of getting hurt. I have a select number of friends who know who I truly am, and to me those relationships are very important. My partner and I have been together for 2 years now, and I've learned so much about myself through an intimate relationship, and I've learned to communicate my feelings more and open up when I'm feeling down. Now let's discuss adolescent relationships. First, let's start with peers. Adolescents spend most of their time with their peers. During 7th and 8th grade, my friend group went from same sex to mixed sex. Currently, I hang out with mostly guys, and I feel like this is because I grew up around my brother and his friends. The crowd I ran with in high school shaped who I am today, and we all share the same interests and values. Sometimes I felt pressured to go and do things with my crowd that did not match my character. But because they were whom I considered my friends, I normally went anyways. Moving on to romantic relationships. Most of my romantic relationships during adolescence have been short-lived. I have always felt the need to fill the void of my father's absence and find stability. Because of this, I tend to find someone with similar characteristics as my father, and I tend to get bored after a year or so. I feel like my past romantic relationships have shaped the current one I am in. I've learned to be more independent and not rely on a partner to fill a void. I've also learned to communicate my feelings better and not leave the relationship when things are not quite satisfying. When I was in middle school, I always needed a boyfriend to feel stable, and I feel like I'm afraid to be alone. I'm currently in a steady 2-year relationship, and it has taught me a lot about myself, as stated earlier. Now for the conclusion. Overall, the theories discussed have outlined my life pretty well. I believe I still have a lot to learn, and there is always room for growth. I'm only 20, and I definitely do not have life all figured out, but I am on the right track. Adolescent years help you figure out who you are, where you want to go, and who you want to be. And it has taught me that it is okay to not have everything figured out at this age. Related to Kohlberg's theory, I believe in my adult life I will continue to act on my own principles based on what society believes is good. But I will always have my own opinion about what is right. Related to Erikson's adulthood crisis, I definitely want to contribute to society and leave my positive impact. Lastly, related to Piaget's theory, I want to continue to grow cognitively by asking questions and thinking abstractly. Continuing to manipulate my mental thoughts will keep me sharp and gain more intelligence. In conclusion, adolescence is hard, but you make it through and learn a lot along the way. Thank you for watching my video.